back to Your Detroit Now. We got a great episode ahead of us, Musa. Not a traditional weekly update. Today we got a special guest, a story of overcoming adversity, setting goals, and seeing your potential. Today's guest, Detroit Lions tight end, Michigan native. Please welcome Tyler Conklin.
I appreciate it, guys.
Tyler, welcome to the show. How are you?
I appreciate it. I'm looking forward to it, guys. Thanks for having me on today.
Oh, of course.
Anytime.
We are so excited. So, Tyler, like we started the show, Michigan native. You grew up in Macomb, Chesterfield Township. Can you tell us a little bit about, your early life? You went to LCN?
Yeah, so I grew up on 24 in Gratiot. Went to all Lance Cruz schools. Went to Lance Cruz North for high school. Got a little brother and little sister who also went to the district. My mom was a teacher and a counselor in the district over at the other Lance Cruz. And just a very basic middle class kind of upbringing. Like I said, mom was a teacher. Dad worked at Consumers Energy. Parents got divorced when I was in sixth grade. Still really good parents. Brothers and sisters played sports.
You were primarily a basketball player. I mean, basketball was your life. Can you tell us a little bit about that? What was it like playing basketball, being your main sport in high school?
Yeah, I mean, basketball is always kind of my first love. I spent most of my time just in the gym, setting up garbage cans and cones, and I just enjoyed doing it. I enjoyed trying to get better at it. I enjoyed being able to go and just do it by myself. You didn't need anybody with you. You could just grab a ball and find a rim and, just go do what you wanted to do. So, kind of throughout middle school and travel basketball and going to high school at Lance Cruz North, we were just a little better. We tended to be better at basketball. I think in football we were 0-27 on varsity. Going into my senior year, basketball we were pretty good. Then my junior year we went the farthest any Macomb team's ever gone at that point, and we lost in the Final Four to Saginaw up at the Breslin Center. And after that game, I got my offer to play college basketball at Northwood. And, going into my senior year for football, two of my really good friends were both kind of played quarterback there, fighting for the job. And I wasn't going to play football because I just wanted to focus on basketball. I already ended up signing, early signing period for basketball. So I signed before I even played my senior year of basketball. And I signed, right after my senior year of football. So, I wasn't going to play at first just because I already had an offer. And my buddies, they kind of convinced me, no, you got to play. So I ended up playing. We had a new coach that year. He's like, we're gonna turn it around. We're gonna host a playoff game and win a playoff game. And everybody's kind of just like, yeah, right, man. We haven't won a game here in 2-3 years, whatever it was. And then what do you know? We ended up going 8-3, hosted and won our first ever playoff game. I started getting recruited for football. A lot of MAC schools, Central, Northern Illinois. The only Big Ten school was Illinois. And when Illinois reached out, I called Northwood, and I was like, hey, I think I'm going to go through my football recruiting a little bit. And they were like, yeah, you can do that, but I can't guarantee your full ride to still be there. And I was like, they kind of suckered me into it a little bit, having a full ride for, felt like it really helped my parents and family to not have to worry about school. And I was like, I'll just say I'll take the full ride. I'll go be the best basketball player to ever play at Northwood. I'll go overseas, yada, yada, yada. And so I took that offer, and that's how I went. Played my senior year of basketball, and went on to go to Northwood and play basketball for the first semester of my freshman year.
Tyler, you committed to Northwood College, and then you were a walk-on on Central Michigan. Can you tell us a little bit about your process?
Yeah, so after I got to Northwood, I went up there for summer classes and summer workouts, and I was miserable. I didn't really like it. And I ended up playing my first 7 games as a true freshman at Northwood. Didn't like the school, just homesick, all the first year college things, right? You miss home, you miss your friends, getting used to going to class and doing all those things on your own. I felt like I should have been playing at a higher level. I felt like I should have been playing Division I basketball. I shouldn't have signed early and all those things. I remember being I was probably elementary school or early middle school, and I remember telling my mom, hey, I'm going to be the first ever Division I athlete at that time. And I just felt like I kind of sold myself short and and didn't stick to my word. And so I kind of started looking for other schools. I started looking at like Oakland, Eastern, and UAD. Those were kind of like the three mid majors that recruited me for basketball. So I was trying to figure out like what seemed like a good fit. And one day I was back home and I was watching Michigan State play. Tight end was Josiah Price. He ended up catching like a stick now for a touchdown. I think he's like the all-time leader for touchdowns at tight end in Michigan State history. And I was like, man, I can do that. Like, nothing against Josiah, great college tight end. But I just remember watching. I was like, I can do that. And so I started looking at some schools for football: Central, Michigan State, and Wayne State, just to be closer to home. I thought it'd help with college. And my little brother actually went on a visit up to, like a junior day up to Michigan State, and I went with him and ended up talking to the coaches. And through that process, I was going to walk on at State, and then I didn't have a college math class. In high school, I took like Algebra 2 year 1 and Algebra 2 year 2 because I hated math. So when I got to Northwood, I had to take like a college, like intro to college math class, and then I didn't really finish that semester. So I didn't have that, so I ended up not being able to go to Michigan State because I didn't have a college math class. Like I was good to walk on for football, but that kind of fell through. And then I went and visited Wayne State. I really liked it. I was like, hey man, I'll just go here. I'll be close to home. And then Central called one day. I was at my buddy's house, and they're like, hey, we'll let you come walk on for spring ball. It doesn't guarantee you a spot in the 105-man roster in the fall, but like you can come for spring ball and try to make the team. And I was geeked. I mean, I was running around the house like, oh man, I did it. All because they said I could walk on for spring ball. I thought like, accomplished the goal of going D1. I remember going up there on my visit and like, having like custom gear and Central Michigan gloves. I just thought it was the coolest thing ever at that point. Wooden lockers. I mean, the locker room's way better now, but compared to Northwood, I mean, I thought it was like a huge. I'm like, man, I found like I made it Division I. Like this is awesome. So that's kind of the transition from basketball to football, and then obviously that brings on like its whole new group of challenges. Going from being a walk on to kind of working my way up.
We just came off an interview with Kronk recently where the concept of a team is incredibly important. They were one of the first boxing teams. So let me ask you, who was in your corner at that time? Who are some of the people that were like rooting for you during this time? This is a very risky gamble that you had. You're leaving free college to go be a walk-on. I mean, who's some of the people in your team, and what's the advice that you're given at that time?
Yeah, most of the advice was don't do it. High school coach, grandparents, parents, like, oh, just like do one more year. You're just homesick. The transition to college is tough. Like everybody's kind of just like, just at least stick it out for one more year. Hoping I think that I'd like it, and then just finish out my career and have free college. And I was like, no, I'm leaving. I just had my mind made up. I don't know what. Like obviously, like my family and everybody was in my corner. They believed in me and they supported me and what I was doing. But like looking at it from their perspective now, like you have a kid that's 18 years old leaving free college because he doesn't like it, going to walk on and play a different sport at a higher level, and it's kind of like, man, like I should probably convince this kid for his like own well-being to like take free school and save himself from $100,000 in debt in a couple of years. So looking at it from their perspective, like now, like surprised they didn't push me harder to stay. But definitely it wasn't like everybody's favorite idea. And then when I first got there, I didn't know if I made the right decision either. Like I got there, I was playing wide receiver for spring ball the first 3 weeks. The last 2 weeks, they moved me to defensive end. So I was like, oh man, like I mean, I was a wide receiver in high school, and that's what I wanted to play in college. So, like I was good with that for 3 weeks. I thought I was doing well. They brought me in to play DN, and I was like, oh man, like I've never played defense. I was like 200 pounds, trying to like play the run and hold the C gap, and I was just like, man, maybe I made the wrong decision. Like, sometimes I wish I could like go back and really remember what I was thinking in those moments. But like I still didn't like Central. I was sleeping on the cot. Like, my buddies, 2 guys I went to high school with, I was sleeping on their cot because my roommates. I didn't really know them, and I wanted to be around people that I knew. Because just the transition, I think, was difficult for me. So I was sleeping on their cot for the semester, and just I'd wake up, they'd all be sleeping because they were just going to class and they were normal students. I'd be walking over to the IAC to go to practice. I'm like, man, this sucks. And then they moved me to DN. I was like, I'm probably going to have to leave. So I was going to go to Siena Heights. one of my best friends, my high school quarterback, he was the quarterback at Siena Heights, and I was like, I'm gonna go to Siena Heights. I'll just play both sports and I'll have my best friend there. I'll dominate, like whatever. So I actually went up there, did a workout. They offered me a scholarship, and they sent a release to Central for me to get my release to leave and go to Siena. And my D-line coach, Coach Rickham Strick, called me. He's like, hey, what's this like release about? And I was like, oh, I don't really know. Like, I was gonna call you and ask about moving to tight end. And I was being a walk-on. They could just be like, you're not moving. Like, they had nothing invested in me, right? And he's like, let me talk to the staff and whatnot. And he ended up calling me back, and okay, we'll move you to tight end. So, yep, and then I started that journey. Yeah, so I started as like the eighth tight end out of 8 tight ends. So I got there because at that time you had to sit out when you transferred. So, there's none of the transfer portal NIL stuff, obviously. So I transferred after my first semester. I played spring ball, then I had to sit out a year and just practice. So I just practiced, no games, couldn't travel, nothing. Like, you really just feel like you're not part of the team because, like we went to the Bahamas for that bowl game where we had that crazy game against Western Kentucky. I didn't get to go. So I just had to stay there for bowl practice, like the whole winter break, and then not go to the Bahamas. And so then I came back after that year and a half of sitting out and just practicing. I was a sophomore. I ended up winning the number 2 spot behind our senior tight end, and then I played as a tight end too. Then my junior year, I ended up starting. I had a pretty good season. Kind of my breakout game against Oklahoma State when we upset them on the Hail Mary at the end of the game. And then going to my senior year, like I had a lot of bigger agencies talking to me, so like I knew I had a decent chance because I had some bigger agencies and a lot of agents reaching out. So like that moment of like these top agents reaching out, I went, oh man, this dream is close. And then first day of camp, we were doing one-on-ones. I broke my foot, and man, I was devastated. I'm like, oh man, like, all this work, I'm so close. Like walk on, switch sports, beat out 7, 8 people to become a starter. Earn a scholarship, have a good junior year, have like a pretty clear path to NFL in the sense that like, I was a real, people were really recruiting me, like top agencies, like I was projected to get drafted, and then man, I break my foot, and I'm like, oh crap, like who knows what's gonna happen now? And then it's one of those things was like, am I gonna come back? Can I come back? Will I build a medical red shirt? Then I just kind of went down a rabbit hole, just recovery. How fast can I come back? Who's the best surgeon? How do I, recover from this and still play this year? Do I medical redshirt? So I came back in like 7.5 weeks, and we had a meeting. It was like if I came back and played that game, we were playing Ohio, and got hurt, or if I re-hurt it, if I came back and re-hurt it, then I couldn't medical redshirt. And if I came back and was healthy, then obviously I was good to go. So I want to kind of just finish out with all the guys that came in, like all the guys that, I built relationships with, and, some of my best friends are, my roommates in college and teammates from college. So I decided to play, and in that first game back, I think I had like 130 and 2 touchdowns. And I finished out like my last 5 or 6 games that year, or whatever it was, 7 games. And then, it's going to get drafted in the 5th round.
So it's clear at this point that you are an NFL prospect. Teams are looking at you. I read that you had a workout with Coach Campbell when he was the tight ends coach at New Orleans. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, so, once you're going through the process and getting ready to go down somewhere and train, and I went to Exos in Pensacola, Florida because I was coming off an injury, and they have the Andrews facility there, so we thought it looked good to be down there by a rehab place and show that I'm doing all the right recovery stuff on top of training. I played in the Senior Bowl in Mobile, Alabama. It's just a short drive from Pensacola, so we also thought that was convenient. And then I went to the combine, and then after the combine, you have pro day, and you go through. You can go on visits to teams, or coaches can come to you, and you can do like a workouts and meetings. And so after the Senior Bowl, and so I played in the Senior Bowl, went to the combine, did all right at the combine. A lot of things I did well, some things I wish I would have done better. But whatever, I felt like I did well enough where I wasn't really going to test that pro day. I was going to go run routes, and besides that, do nothing. And then Coach Campbell, Coach Peel, there's a handful of coaches that came up, and I did meetings with them. And but Coach Campbell was the only coach that I ended up doing a workout with. So it was one morning, he came up there and we just did a private workout, at the indoor at Central Michigan. And I remember after that workout, I'm like, man, I want to go to the Saints. Like at that time, I don't think they had like a solidified like tight end. I really like Coach Campbell. Just from that, small interaction, a small workout. And so I really wanted to play for him. And then, the draft comes along, and we have a draft party at my house, a bunch of friends and family. And I think the Saints were on the board coming up, and then the Vikings traded up like 2 picks in the 5th round to take me. And then, so we go to Minnesota.
What was your communication with the Vikings before the draft?
I don't really remember it being a ton. I think I met with Coach Barone, who was the tight end coach when I got there. Things got flipped around, so he didn't end up being my coach throughout my rookie year, besides like off-season activity. But I want to say I might have had like a virtual meeting with Minnesota. I don't remember, man. It was 9 years ago at this point, but I think I had a virtual meeting with Minnesota. I think that was about it though. I had a handful of them obviously at the combine and the All-Star game, the Senior Bowl, but I think I might have did like a phone interview or a Zoom interview or something with them at some point.
Tyler, what was your welcome to the NFL moment?
I'd probably say we played like Green Bay my rookie year in week 2. So Kyle Rudolph was the starting tight end. David Morgan was the backup. David Morgan was like a bigger blocking tight end. Obviously, Kyle at that time was like I think he had 1 All-Pro and was on a big contract. And I was just I ended up winning tight end 3 spots. I played a lot of special teams and occasional three tight end personnels. But David Morgan hurt his knee that game. And I ended up having to go in, like we were in like a YY wing formation on the backside of the inside zone or something. And Clay Matthews was like in a stand-up 9 technique, and I got off the ball super late. Couldn't hear anything. We were at Lambeau, so it was loud. And he just like drove me to the back. I'm like, oh, man, let's figure this out fast.
When you were in Minnesota, Drew Petzing, current Detroit Lions offensive coordinator, was an assistant coach in Minnesota. What was the relationship like with him at this time?
Yeah, so Coach Petzing was the assistant wide receiver coach when I got to Minnesota for my first 2 years. He was then he ended up leaving when Coach Stefanski went and took the Cleveland Browns job. Obviously, I didn't like have a super close relationship. He was the assistant guy in the wide receiver room, and I was just a rookie and going into my second year, just trying to figure it out. Like, we had a much older team when I was in Minnesota, a lot of older guys, a lot of vets, and I was just trying to find a way to stick around the league at that point. So, yeah, we did cross paths, but I didn't have a ton of interaction with him from what I remember, I guess.
So you are on the Vikings for your first few years in the NFL, then you move over to the Jets. What's that transition like?
Yeah, so I played my 4 years. I didn't really get a chance to play significant plays until the end of my 3rd year. We had some people get banged up. Kyle Rudolph got hurt. Me and Irv Smith I got to be the tight end 2 with Irv Smith, who they drafted my 2nd year in the 2nd round. And I ended up having some decent games. I ended up my 3rd year with like 19 catches for 190 yards or 20 catches for 190 yards and a touchdown like the last 5 games. So I feel like it was my first time where I actually got my feet wet and I felt like, okay, I can like really play in this league. Then my 4th year, Irv's the starter. I'm the number 2. The last preseason game, Irv tears his meniscus, misses the whole season. I end up starting, and then I go to free agency for the first time. I end up signing with New York. I'm on a 3-year deal, and that was big, right? Because like depending on how your career goes, like if you just play a couple years, like you don't make like a significant amount of money to where like you're not going to be really trying hard to figure out what you're going to do after. So like that's a big stressor. So being able to sign like a bigger deal with some guaranteed money to go somewhere, and then also to go somewhere after having a good season and feel like my career is ascending. I was excited. Like I was excited to go to New York. It was a close flight. My wife was excited. It's going to be cool being close to the city. It seemed promising place. Coach Solid was going on his 2nd year. So I was excited about it. Like it was, and we really enjoyed New York. New York was a good 3 years for us. Obviously, I wish we would have won more football games, but we really enjoyed our time there.
You play with Aaron Rodgers, and you caught his 500 touchdown pass. Some people say he's one of the greatest quarterbacks of all time. I don't think anyone in Detroit would agree with that, but I'm just asking, what was it like playing with Aaron Rodgers?
Yeah, I enjoyed it. You know, Aaron was. I had to say he is like. If not, you can argue rings and wins, but like from a talent, like arm talent standpoint, I mean, he's the most talented. You know, one of, if not the most talented quarterback right there ever play. I think like Stafford's up there. Um, but and I grew up. You know, I did grow up a Green Bay fan. Uh, my dad was a Bears fan. My dad's whole family's Bears fans. My cousin was a Green Bay fan. I think to just like make our dads mad, so I just jumped on that bandwagon as a kid to, kind of go to, kind of have that rivalry with our dads. So I did grow up a Green Bay fan, like probably starting back with like Brett Favre, Vermont Green, Donald Driver, Greg Jennings. So and obviously that carried on. Like I remember winning the Super Bowl in 2010 against the Steelers, and. So yeah, so I guess that was cool, right? Being able to play with someone that like I grew up, one of my favorite teams, and then I go to Minnesota, and now I'm in Detroit. My dad's a Bears fan, so we got the whole NFC North, throughout my, my years so far, and but it was cool, getting to learn the game like through him and the way he processes and like how he plays the game is just it's incredible how smart he is, and it's incredible. Like I always just say, like the way he could spin the ball at 41 years old, like I can only imagine how it was when he was 25, 30, whatever. Like, just what he did was just impressive on a day-to-day basis. Like every day in practice, like he threw something that was just, just wowed you. So, and then catching his 500 touchdown ball is awesome, right? Like it's a cool fun fact, right? And it's, in a way, I guess it's a really good trivia question.
Tyler, after New York, you go to the opposite side of the country. You're on the Chargers. What's that like under Coach Harbaugh, coming off his national championship? He's now the Chargers head coach. Can you tell us a little bit what it's like playing for Coach Harbaugh at the pros?
Yeah, so I ended up after my 3 years in New York, I actually had an extension offer to go to New York for 2 more years. I ended up, that was before free agency started. I ended up not taking that offer and going to free agency. Free agency kind of just like fell flat for me a little bit, just different circumstances and variables that kind of happened in that offseason. And it came down to a situation where there's like a couple of teams where I was going to be on a 1 year deal at. And LA was the first place I was going to go on a visit. I was supposed to go on a couple more visits after that. And I didn't take them because when I got to LA, I'm like, man, like, I think there's a good opportunity here. Justin Herbert's no, super, super talented quarterback. My wife was excited for the opportunity to go and like spend a year in California. She was probably a little more excited about that than me, just based off the taxes and how expensive it is. But she was excited to be somewhere warm for the year, and that ended up being a cool experience. And on my initial age and stuff, like it just seemed like a good fit. And so I ended up not taking any more of my visits, and I ended up taking the 1 year deal there. Just like, hey, like I'm gonna go sign a 1 year. It's a good situation. I'll go play well, get back to free agency, so on and so forth. And we get there, and it just kind of didn't play out the way I thought it was going to play out. For whatever reason, we did very specific personnel stuff. It just didn't really fit how I was the tight end, and probably ended up being one of the tougher years for me as a athlete in general. Right, just first time I was ever enacted a healthy scratch. Just kind of an interesting year for me, right? And getting out after that season, I kind of figured like without the opportunity to really go out there and produce, I was going to be in a situation where I needed to find a good place to have an opportunity to go and play at a high level. Probably wasn't going to be for a ton of money, and if Detroit ended up being an option, like I was going to jump on it pretty quick. And so I was excited to get out of LA. There were some good things, there were some bad things, with that experience for me personally. But we enjoyed living there, and we were excited to get home and sign to Detroit after that.
You hinted at it. You said you were excited to come back to Michigan, but you grew up as a Packers fan, as you said. A lot of NFC North going on in your family, especially now that to come full circle on the Detroit Lions. I want to touch about how excited you are to be back in Michigan, back with your family, back in the state where it all began.
Yeah, so I mean, I have a house in Michigan. We've always lived here in the off season, so we always rented wherever we played. Besides Minnesota, that's where I bought my first house, for a couple of years. When I left Minnesota and signed my deal in New York, we ended up buying a house in Michigan, And every offseason we'd come back here for the offseason. We just rent in New York, and we rented in LA. So Michigan's always been home base. My sister's here, my dad's here, my brother's in a different state. My mom's back and forth between here and Florida. My wife's family's here. So be able to sign here, and I think in all season, just like getting home, like obviously we're in the playoffs when I was in New York. So being able to come home and like a lot of my close friends are huge Lions fans, and be able to sit here and watch for the last couple of years just Coach Campbell and the Lions just turning around and what it's done for the economy, what it's done for the state. Even especially like the year, Michigan wins a natty, Lions go to NFC North. It's like what it did for, the people in Michigan, right? Like everybody's wearing their Lions gear, their Michigan gear. People are out and about. The economy's good. Everything's getting better in the city. Food scene's getting better. Like it was just like I always kind of had a little bit of like jealousy of like, man, like, I would like to be here. Like, things just seem like I already love Michigan. I love being home, and now like things are even better. Like the Lions are good, and I was always just like when I would be home watching the playoffs, I was always just rooting for them. Like that. Like, I was pretty upset about the NFC Championship loss too. So I'm just like, man, like it's just so good to see the Lions be good. I never really thought I'd end up playing here, but like I was always just kind of rooting for them, just knowing I'm going to live here for the rest of my life and be in Michigan. Like I want, Michigan sports to be good. Like I'm happy the Pistons are good, because that was a whole different story also, 2-3 years ago. But yeah, so, I say all that to just say it's really good to be home. It's nice to be able to just live in my house and drive to work. And, hopefully I can be a part of helping them get back to, those games.
Yes, absolutely.
Tyler, what has each stop in your career taught you?
That's a good question. They definitely all taught me different things. Minnesota was a lot about patience. Doing the right, like doing what you're supposed to do and doing the right things, and just give yourself a chance. If you can't control the controllable, right? You can't control when your opportunity is going to come or how it's going to come, but making sure you're doing what you're supposed to do to be ready for it when it does come, and having the patience to do so was really big, along with just becoming a grown up. Like buying a house, learning how to go about doing all those different things. As a grown up, just learning about money and taxes and. That was all like, Minnesota was a huge learning experience from just becoming a grown up and normal life, but also just what it takes to try to give yourself the best opportunity in the NFL. New York had its. I think the biggest thing I learned in New York was just. That's a good question because I felt like I was playing good football, but like, we just didn't win football games, and that was really tough to go somewhere and I enjoyed, like, our locker room was great. I love my teammates. I love the coaches. Being around so many good people, I just want us to win so bad. So it would have been a great place if we would have won. And I think that taught me how to become a better leader, right? That was a younger locker room. I was an older guy at that time, I guess, years 5, 6, and 7. And, I think I could have been more of a leader, but I think it definitely, kind of helped me become a better leader and realize what I needed to do so. So I think that's kind of the big thing there. And then LA was really, really, that was a tough year. I'm not really quite sure what that year taught me yet, to be honest with you. I'd like to think, everything happens for a reason. I truly believe that. Getting hurt my first practice my senior year, walking on, leaving scholarships, doing all those things, not taking a contract extension, ending up on a 1 year somewhere for less money, and it not going my way. I don't know why it all happened yet, but then I come and I end up with the opportunity to come home to Detroit, and I'm sure to kind of clear up in the next couple of years of why it all happened. So not sure what LA taught me yet. It really, besides it really taught me I'm thankful for my wife, my son, right? Like that was a big thing being out there. Being able to just come home to them and enjoy my family when things were tough was big for me.
Tyler, what would you tell 18-year-old Tyler who is trying to walk onto Central Michigan?
Oh man. Well, I like to think it worked out pretty well. So I like to maybe not tell myself anything, right? Because I just the unknown and like the want to make it happen, just like, just create a drive and a discipline and whatnot that I think, got me to year 9 in the NFL. So I probably wouldn't say too much, right? I think, I guess if I was gonna say anything to myself, probably with hindsight, it'd be, just be present, right? Like everything's gonna work out how it's supposed to work out, whether you think it's how it should go or not how it's gonna go. Just enjoy the moment. Life goes too fast. There's gonna be good days, bad days, good moments, bad moments. Just enjoy them.
Tyler, you've gone through some ups and downs. Obviously, New York was a big up, getting drafted a big up, but you've had some adversity. You broke your foot. You were 8th on the depth chart. You were a walk-on, 3rd on the depth chart in Minnesota. What's your mindset when you get into these roadblocks? What's your mindset when you're overcoming this adversity?
Yeah, I'd probably say a lot of it for me is just like the systems I've structured throughout my career, even back to college or whatnot. Like just the way I go about things on a daily basis. And they've got better and better every year. They've got better and better with more resources that I've got, whether that's just coaches or income or whatever. But just creating systems, right? Like, what do I do on a daily basis to get me to my goals? Like for me, it's always where do I want to be and how do I kind of reverse engineer my way to that final goal. Like I knew I always wanted to be a professional athlete, and I thought it was basketball. And at one point, like I had to make a decision to kind of have that pivot moment of like, hey, like, maybe it's not basketball. I gotta, pivot, and I ended up choosing football. And I think that's the same for everybody. Like whether it's a business, right? Like you start a business to do this, and a lot of like Amazon pivoted at one point. All these different businesses start doing one thing, and you realize like, hey, like I know where I want to get. Maybe this is the right way. Like, well, how do I got to pivot to get to where I want to get? So I think just the two things, reverse engineering my goals and how to get there, and then just creating systems to follow to kind of, keep me steady, not get too high, not get too low, and just, rely on my discipline to get me there.
So through my research, one thing that I found that you are big on is your goals, setting goals for every year that you're in the NFL, every year in college. Tyler, what's so important about manifesting your goals, bringing these goals into fruition?
Yeah, right. I think we should all have goals. Like if we don't have goals, we don't know where we want to be. I'm not saying you always got to know exactly what you want to do, but if you don't have something to work towards, you're kind of just aimlessly working. And my first, 2 years in the NFL, I didn't really write any goals those 2 years. That's probably my first time in, I don't know, a long time that I didn't write goals. I just didn't know what to write. Like I didn't know what my role was going to be. I didn't know if I was going to make the team. I didn't know, anything. So I didn't really write goals. So I didn't really know what goals to write. And then my 3rd year, I feel like I kind of understood how to go about an off season and like, what I could do. So I wrote goals, but I always wanted to make them realistic. Like never sell myself short, but make them realistic for like what my role could be on that team. And I think that 3rd year, I made my goals like 20 plus catches, 200 plus yards, 2 plus touchdowns. Like I said earlier, I didn't get a chance to play. I was just as frustrated in most of that season as I was in year 1 and year 2. But then all of a sudden, I get a chance to play the last 5 games of year 3, and I end the season with 19 catches for 190 yards and a touchdown. Like that's pretty damn close to my goals. So I just remember just thinking like, man, like I gotta get back to writing goals, right? Like, that obviously did something. And so ever since then I've got back to doing it, and I've wrote goals for everything, whether it was in college, spring ball, winter conditioning, camp, season, for every different stage of throughout the year of like what I can work, where I want to be, what are my goals for that year. And those 2 years I didn't do them, and I got back to my 3rd year, and I just was like, it wasn't a coincidence. I don't really believe in coincidences, right? That like I made those goals and we were just right on target. And then, from there on out, I've just always made sure I got back to it.
So what do these goals look like? Are they as simple as I want to have X amount of catches, I want to score X amount of touchdowns, I want to be X weight? Or is it like variable?
It's a handful of things, right? It might be like no MAs, which is like no missed assignments. To have a blocking, have a blocking grade of this, have a pass catching grade of this, have this many catches, this many yards, this many touchdowns, make an impact in this way, 0 drops, 0 penalties, whatever it may be. Just a little bit of everything.
Tyler, you have a foundation in camp this summer. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, so like when I first got in the NFL, like I said, there's a lot of older guys on my team, like Kyle Rudolph, Adam Thielen, Kirk Cousins, and a lot of guys had foundations and did a lot of work in the community. And like at that moment, I was like, man, like I really one day want to like have a foundation. Like I said, I love home. I love where I'm from, where I went to high school. Like I really want to have a foundation, be able to make like an impact in my community, and um, have a legacy in my community and where I'm from, that can stay active even outside, even when I'm done playing. And throughout those years, like I just like I didn't really have the ability to do it, financially. I didn't really necessarily feel like I had a team around me. It just seemed like a lot to do, and I was just trying to focus on like staying in the NFL, get into a second contract, and whatnot. And then last year, like I finally felt like I had the people around me to kind of help me get it off the ground and start doing it. So we started it, and year one went well. We hosted a bunch of events, but um, it's just crazy. Like it was a ton of it was a lot more than I expected from like a work capacity. And after going through that whole entire year, doing events and raising money for things that we care about, I really started realizing just like how to make it better, and what we did well, what we didn't do well, and really just create like a more clear and concise vision of like how to create what I wanted to create. Kind of like I was talking about earlier with reverse engineering. Like, what do I really want this foundation to be about? And to me, it really came back to serving the community, helping youth, um, and being a part of it personally. Me and my family, like out there in the community, like I said earlier too, from a legacy standpoint, and being around the kids and being around families in the community. And so we put a lot of work into it going into year two of just like what we want it to be. And at the end of the day, that's our mission, right? How do we want to strengthen communities and mentor youth through athletics. And this year we're going to raise money for like our Play It Forward fund. That fund um, will, whenever we host an event or do anything to raise money, you can go to our website and donate. This fund will be created, and then we'll have 6 weeks, a 6 week cycle during the year where coaches in the community, whether you're maybe a teacher at elementary school or a coach of a little league team or a coach of a high school team or a middle school team or whatever it may be, school district, not school district, but you could come to us and fill out a grant application that, for something that you want to support your kids with, right? Maybe you need better helmets for safety. Maybe you need new jerseys. Maybe you want to implement a wrestling program at your elementary school. Whatever it may be, right? And we'll get those grant applications from people, members of the community, and then we'll go through them, and like our board will have metrics to go about how we choose who we're going to donate to, and then we'll go and donate to try to help people that are asking for grant money to kind of help support what they want to do in the community to help our kids. And so that's gonna be the mission for our foundation going forward, and that's gonna be how we want to give back what we raise. And to do that, we're gonna we'll host different events in the community. This year's big one is doing all this behind the scenes work. Our big thing was having just like one really successful event this year, and that's gonna be our June 27th event, which is our youth camp and community day, which we also did last year. I've done camps every year for like the past 6 years or so, but last year was the first time kind of doing it with like how I envision it. That's going to be 2 different camps, one for kids, younger kids, one for older kids. I think the ages are 6 to 11 or 6 to 10 and 11 to 16. But we'll have, obviously we'll do football, but on top of that, we'll have food trucks and vendors, whether it's mom and pop shops or whatever, people come in and setting up vendors and be able to sell or market what they want to market, whether it's a small business or they sell certain things. So we'll have vendors, we'll also have bouncy houses and, kind of festival-like things, face paint for kids. We want it to be an all-encompassing community event where, just families can come and hang out and look forward to it in the summer. You could have maybe one kid that's in the camp and maybe one kid's younger, and we'll still have stuff for them, right? Like there'll be, food and like I said, bouncy houses and face paint and things to do. And at the same time, I'll be able to walk around and look at the different vendors and different people in the community doing great things, and it's also get to support them. So that's our June 27th event at Lance Cruz High School North, and really looking forward to kind of growing that and see where we can get it in year 2.
Absolutely, and the foundation the donations are going towards Play It Forward. We'll leave it down in the description below. Tyler, this camp sounds outstanding. It sounds unbelievable. It sounds like it's something that you're very passionate about, building this community up. This is a state that you haven't left, even when you had houses in Minnesota. Why is that so important to build up the community that you grew up in?
Yeah, I don't know. I just like my wife. She could put. I mean, if I was like, "Hey, let's move to Florida or go somewhere warm," she'd probably love that. think it's just the way I've always been. I've always just been very loyal to where I'm from. To the people I grew up with. And it's just always kind of a thing for me. Like I mentioned the legacy thing earlier. Like I think that's something that is important to me, right? Creating something that's going to last even outside of football. Something that like my kids can also partake in as they get older and understand what it's like to be charitable and give back to people. That's very important to me. But yeah, I mean, I don't know. I feel like when you grow up in Michigan, you either love it or you hate it, and I love it. So I just look forward to keep kind of you know growing here in this state and making the foundation bigger and hopefully playing for the Lions for the foreseeable future.
That's outstanding. And we hope to see you here on the Lions for a long time in the future. Longevity is a big part of the game. Technology is improving. Golfers are hitting the ball farther. Baseball players are hitting the ball harder. Football players are running faster. Tyler, how are you using technology and innovation in your own training and in your own everyday life?
Yeah, I mean, I have a love-hate relationship with technology, right? Like, I think it's an amazing thing, but also like we have just so much stimulus and analytics at all times that at moments I feel like it is used too much. But for me, I kind of just rely on like the pieces I put together, whether it's my recovery people, massage therapists, strength coaches, speed coaches. I rely on them to kind of put plans together and use the metrics to make sure I'm where I need to be to go out there and perform. Or our staff down in Detroit, there's 1,000 different things you use to, make sure you're training the right way and hitting the marks you need to hit. So I don't dabble too much in it outside of just like paying attention to what I eat and tracking some of that stuff. But yeah, technology is a heck of a thing.
For others on a non-traditional path, what would your advice be?
Yeah, I would probably say, I mean, it's tough, right? Because I think there is just like, and I've said it before on interviews and whatnot, is you got to have a delusional belief almost of like, no matter what people say or what people think, whether it's your parents, whether it's your friends, whether whoever it is, outside people, like you got to have a belief that you can create whatever you want to create. And, it's like you think about your parents, right? Like obviously if you want to be a professional athlete, like they want to support you and they want it to happen for you, but in the back of their head, they know that that's not the most, maybe possible or logical thing, but you need to believe that it can truly happen. I think if you truly believe that it can happen, and then you put the right work ethic and discipline behind it, then you give yourself a chance.
Tyler, the 2026 Detroit Lions schedule has been released. You're going to play New York week 3. You're going to play the Vikings week 15 and week 8. How excited are you for this new schedule?
Yeah, I'm looking forward to it. It'd be cool to play New York. I still got some buddies over there, and then anytime I get to go over to go to Minnesota, it's always nice being back. So I'm looking forward to it.
Outstanding. Well, Tyler, we want to thank you so much for coming on the show. Is there any final thoughts, anything we missed, anything you want to highlight, anything you want to emphasize?
No, I appreciate you guys having me. Go check out the foundation. We got an Instagram page. We have a website, tylerconklinfoundation.com. You can donate there. You can keep updated on all of our events. You can get updated on content after events. So, go follow the Instagram page, Tyler Conklin Foundation, and go check out the website.
Thank you, Tyler, so much for joining us. Thank you guys so much for watching. Please subscribe. Come watch our next video. And this is Your Detroit Now.